It's not everyone's cup of tea to consume an entire podcast. That's why, welcome to The Ranveer Show's highlights channel, DRS Clips. Subscribe and hit that bell icon. The nation is collectively mourning the loss of 11 of its great sons, including General Bipin Rawat, sir. We even had to postpone the recording of this podcast because of whatever happened this past week. So what's the general sentiment in the Indian Army like? What's happening on ground right now? I know that you knew General Rawat personally, sir. I can't even imagine what you are going through yourself. We'd love to hear what you have to say about the situation.
It has been a monumental national tragedy of massive proportions. We've lost General Bipin Rawat, we've lost the lady, and we've lost, some very brilliant officers on his staff and his guard. His entire entourage went down with that helicopter. There is only one survivor who's battling for his life right now, group captain from the Air Force who was an instructor at the Staff College. It has been a massive tragedy and a great blow. General Bipin Rawat was the chief of the Army Staff, and he went on to be India's first Chief of Defence Staff. Right? He was a combat soldier. After one assignment after another, he had been in combat. Whether in J&K, 2-3 tenures, he had served as a brigade commander of the RR sector in the valley. Then he was on the Uri, on the line of control, commanding a division. Earlier than that, he has been in a number of other combat assignments. He had served in the northeast, etc. His decorations say it all: Param Vishish Seva Medal, Uttam Yuddha Seva Medal, Ati Vishish Seva Medal, Yuddha Seva Medal, Sena Medal, Vishish Seva Medal. My God, that's quite a chest full of ribbons. Quite a chest full of ribbons, And he was a soldier's soldier. He had been in combat, seen it all, done it all. And I don't think that, it's very right for anybody to aspire to be the chief unless he has had solid, extensive combat experience. He has experienced the fog of war, taking, calls in the fog of war. So he had that all. I was very privileged that I was posted as an instructor in the Indian Military Academy from 1977 to 1980. When, during this period, he was a gentleman cadet at the IMA under training, and I had the privilege to impart him training, and he had earned the Sword of Honor there. And we knew he was cut out for great things, because he was, showing very early signs of all that he would achieve subsequently in life. So we had marked him out as, separate from the rest, and it was very satisfying to see the growth, professional growth and rise of one of your students, one of your cadets. As an instructor, it was a great privilege for me. He was a second generation soldier. His father was a general in the army too, a lieutenant general, and he served in the Gurkha Rifles. He was an infantry officer, salt of this earth, etc. Very bright, very brilliant, very future oriented, very much change oriented. You see, a good officer is one who has an aura of creative change around him. So he was brilliant. His going, therefore, is a personal loss. I knew him very well. Even after the academy, his training got over, we kept in touch. Our paths kept crossing at numerous places. When I was commanding a battalion in Kargil, he was in the Military Operations Directorate where I had served previously. He had come with the DGMO to visit my battalion. We had met after ages. And then our paths continued to cross when he was the Vice Chief. When he became the Vice Chief, we met at a function, and then he requested me to sort of come and meet him, and he used to occasionally call me, take my inputs, advice, consult me on various professional issues, take my views. And he was gracious enough. I was now, of course, he was three ranks above, 2 ranks above me then, and thereafter 4 ranks above me. But he was gracious enough to an old instructor. He would get up from his office chair and come and receive me at the door and take me, sit down and discuss, take notes, and act on them. So we had a very, very, what shall I say, very productive kind of a relationship in which I could put in my 2 pennies worth even after retirement, and it was very, very pleasant to be listened to with so much of attention and regard. He was a man in a hurry. Like I said, he was change oriented. After he successfully commanded the Indian Army as a chief, and in his time, he launched proactive operations, cross-border operations into Myanmar, and then he was there in chair when the Uri operations went into the surgical strike by our special forces, 2-3 kilometers inside occupied Kashmir. And then, of course, he was there during the Balakot time also. He became the Chief of Defence Staff, India's first Chief of Defence Staff. He has left an indelible impact upon our military acquisition process that was mired, steeped in delays, bureaucratic red tape, just wasting time amounting to nothing, and critical time, because you can't let military acquisition projects languish for decades. Not years, decades. He changed all that. He designed his next job himself, the Chief of Defence Staff job. He was given the powers of a secretary of the Government of India, and that gave him the financial powers to do this. He integrated really the Ministry of Defence with the military. He brought in uniformed soldiers there, opened a military affairs bureau there, and headed that bureau. He worked very closely with the National Security Advisor, Mr. Doval, and he also worked very closely with the Prime Minister, the top of the political establishment. He had their trust and faith and their ear. So he could push through a lot of projects. You see, this whole arms acquisition process he revolutionized. Right? Revolutionized this process. And to the extent that, when China created problems for us last year, within a matter of months he got us 3 squadrons of fighter aircraft, a squadron of Sukhois, 2 squadrons of MiG-29s, and because he was the Chief of Defence Staff, he got in the Navy MiG-29s, moved them up towards Ladakh. So he synergized operation, used Marcos commandos and the others for operations against the Chinese. He got in the Rafales, they came in his time. The S-400 missiles have come in his time. A missile system, a game changer. The assault rifle has come in his time. So he has left an enduring legacy. There was a lot of controversy around him because he was a man in a hurry, very keen to bring about sweeping reforms and changes. Now, there were people who felt, he wanted to integrate the 3 services. There are 17 different single service headquarters, command level headquarters, right? So he wanted to reduce them to just 4 theater commands. On the American model, on the Chinese model, he wanted to reduce them to 4 theater commands. People were very worried, very frightened that, China is threatening us, Pakistan is threatening us, there is the Taliban in Afghanistan, there's Turkey trying to create problems for us, there are the Maoists, there are the jihadis, and all these anti-national elements within the country. So at such a grim national security scenario, should we be creating organizational turbulence of our own? Should we be bringing in such massive across-the-board changes? But he stuck to his gun. He stuck to his guns. And you need great moral courage and willpower to do that in the face of trenchant opposition. And he did that remarkably well. We used to discuss very often. Yes, of course, we had our professional differences, but he was remarkable and he did justice to the job of the Chief of Defence Staff. So that's about General Rawat.